Q2 is the 19th episode of the 7th season of the American science fiction television series Star Trek, Voyager. It initially aired on the UPN network as the 165th episode of the series, and was directed by Star Trek, The Next Generation cast member LeVar Burton, Geordi La Forge. The series follows the adventures of the Federation's starship Voyager during its journey home to Earth, having been stranded tens of thousands of light-years away. In this episode, Q, John Delancey, stops by to leave his undisciplined son, Keegan Delancey, conceived at the end of The Q and the Gray, in the care of his godmother, Captain Janeway, Kate Mulgrew. This episode marks the last on-screen live-action appearance of Q, until his 2022 return in Season 2 of Star Trek, Picard, and features Q actor John Delancey's real-life son Keegan as the young Q. This episode aired on the United Paramount Network, UPN, on April 11, 2001. Q, John Delancey, shows up on USS Voyager to introduce Catherine Janeway, Kate Mulgrew, to her godson, Q Jr., Keegan Delancey, who now has the appearance of a human teenager. Q Jr. is rambunctious and troublesome, causing various incidents across the ship. Q explains to Janeway that the Continuum hoped his son would help stabilize the Continuum but instead started the same type of problems on a much larger scale, such as tearing holes in the fabric of spacetime. The Continuum blamed Q and plans to turn Q Jr. into an amoeba. Q brought him to Voyager to hopefully have Q Jr. learn something. Janeway suggests some father-son time, but after 10 minutes, Q admits that does not help as Q Jr. had just rearranged the tectonic plates on a nearby planet. Janeway asserts that Q Jr. needs to learn there are consequences for his actions. By order of the Continuum, Q strips Q Jr. of his powers and departs. Q Jr. still manages to cause trouble, but after a stern talking to by Janeway, he improves his ways, even becoming friends with Icheb, Manu Intiraymi. When Q returns, he appears to have little interest in Q Jr.'s progress before departing. Q Jr. becomes depressed, and decides to take Icheb on a tour of the galaxy after stealing the Delta Flyer. They encounter a Chokuzan vessel that fires on them with a neural weapon that knocks Icheb unconscious. Q Jr. races the flyer back to Voyager, and pleads with the doctor, Robert Picardo, to help find a cure for his friend. The doctor is unable to identify how to cure Icheb, and Q refuses to save the life of someone his son put in danger, hoping that would teach him a lesson. When Janeway hears of this, she takes Q Jr. along to locate the Chokuzan ship, hoping to learn how to heal Icheb. When they reach the ship, the Chokuzans demand someone bear punishment for the responsibility of the previous encounter. Janeway attempts to take responsibility as the captain of the ship, but Q Jr. asserts it was his fault. Suddenly, it is revealed that this was all a ploy by Q, the Chokuzan ship never existed, and Icheb is restored to full health. They return to Voyager where Q stands trial to the Continuum. They decide that while Q Jr. has shown some improvement, he will still be exiled from the Continuum and left as a human forever. Q angrily departs following this decision. He returns later and speaks to Janeway, explaining that he told the Continuum that if they exiled his son, he would leave it too. Because of his importance to the stability of the Continuum, they had no choice but to restore Q Jr.'s powers, as long as Q took eternal custody of his son. Q Jr. uses his powers to fill Janeway's ready room with roses before leaving as a token of thanks. Q also shows his appreciation to Janeway by giving her information to help shave a few years off their return trip to Earth. Though thankful for that, Janeway asks why Q did not take them all the way home, to which he replies that he would be setting a bad example for his son if he did all the work for her, before disappearing. LeVar Burton directed this and several other episodes in this television series. He had also played Geordi La Forge in the series Star Trek, The Next Generation, and reprised that role in the episode Timeless, which he also directed. Overall, Burton would direct 8 episodes of Star Trek, Voyager, and 28 overall in the franchise. The episode was noted as 10th funniest episodes of the Star Trek franchise by CBR in 2019. They note the performance by John Delancey as Q, and the humor in that even an alien as powerful as Q struggles parenting a teenager. Den of Geek included this episode on a binge-watching guide that included a roadmap of episodes that, although not typically achieving high ratings, might still be entertaining. In 2020, CBR ranked this episode the 8th best featuring Q. Also in 2020, Screen Rant ranked Q2 the 8th funniest episode of all Star Trek television. In 2021, Tom's Guide said this was a fun episode and that it was entertaining to see Janeway discipline Q's son. On December 21, 2003, this episode was released on DVD as part of a Season 7 box set, Star Trek Voyager, complete 7th season.